Welcome into Rock Hard Music. This is Rob, your host, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite Kiss albums and one of the least talked about Kiss albums outside the Kiss circle would be Kiss Killers. Just a little history on it. It's their second compilation, of course, the first double platinum, originally released only outside the United States, but imports were in demand and quickly became available. I myself got this at a ripe age of, I believe, 11 or 12-ish, something like that. 12 songs and 4 originals: Legend of Night, Down on Your Knees, Nowhere to Run, Partners in Crime. And those were insisted upon by the record label. At the time, I believe it was Phonogram, the parent company of Casablanca, due to the tremendous failure that was Music from the Elder, even though yours truly absolutely loved it. The condition was get a compilation out there and give me 4 tracks, hard rock music, to combat the, I guess, concept album. Kind of reestablish Kiss's name in the hard rock scene, I guess, was the goal here. This one was a little odd in that Freely had nothing to do with this. I believe the quote from Paul somewhere was he was nowhere to be found, or Gene said that. So they were going to go on anyway and make these songs. And Gene had mostly checked out into his, La La Land bullshit days. So this is mostly Paul. I think it was all Paul and co-writers. I believe even Bryan Adams. Yes, summer of '69, Bryan Adams co-wrote some songs on this. And of course, they brought in the producer, Michael James Jackson. The guitars on this were done by Bob Kulick, much like side 4 of Alive 2. And from what I was hearing, or what I researched on it, just doing a little brush up before this, according to what I had read, and I don't know how much validity there is to it, they had told Bob Kulick to sound like Freely on Alive 2's original tracks on side 4. I really don't think he did, if that was the case. I mean, some similarities maybe, but you can clearly tell the difference between the Rocket Ride track, which Freely played, and the others, right? It's a different guitar style. But on this one, Killers, he was given full reign to, do his own thing, and it was fabulous. I mean, I absolutely love Bob Kulick. I always did. Obviously, his look didn't fit what Kiss was looking for. I think that was a big reason he didn't get the initial gig in the first place. But imagine if he did, man. He was one hell of a guitar player. So anyway, in doing these 4 songs, which quickly became, here's my backstory. I didn't have the luxury of, I guess you could call it a luxury. I wasn't old enough to experience Kiss chronologically, being born in '73, not really getting exposure to their music till I was 5, so 78-ish, and that first exposure being Destroyer. And from then, I really couldn't even tell you. It was kind of like whenever I had enough money saved up, from doing whatever, allowance here and there, whatever we could scrape up, it was just whichever Kiss album looked the coolest, I'd grab, or whichever one was accessible, I'd grab. So I don't really know the order in which I heard all of their stuff. By the time Lick It Up came out, I was entering early teens, and I was much more plugged in and aware, of course, MTV and everything at that point, to what was coming out when. But Killers, I remember finding by a complete accident. There was no internet back then, and you had, Rockline, Metal Edge, Hit Parader, Circus, Kerrang, which we really didn't have access to where I live. And of course, there'd be some stuff in like 16 magazine and stuff like that too about Kiss. So you kind of got your info there. And none of them, to my knowledge, really covered Killers. They covered The Elder quite a bit. And I remember seeing Killers in the store, and I was just tripping. I was like, what the hell is this? And so I got it. And like most Kiss fans, I instantly fell in love with the four original tracks, especially if you're someone who's really into Paul's vocal sound. It was like Christmas and Halloween all wrapped up into one, four new Paul songs, right? And honestly, I can tell you, even going back to when I got this, I don't think I really listened to the the compilation tracks more than a handful of times because I know all them songs, right? And then you've had double platinum to reference for your greatest hits, and by that time, you're making mixtapes and or mix CDs, whatever you had the money to do. And so I threw the four on all my mixtapes or mix CDs or whatever, the four new tracks, right? Because I heard everything else. But we're going to go ahead and break down that album. So starting off, we have I'm a Legend Tonight, written by Paul Stanley and Adam Mitchell. This was pretty much my favorite song off this album from the jump, and might be a close second behind Nowhere to Run now, but I love the song. I love the meaning behind it. The whole the way it starts with the guitar and then it goes into the the nice drum. I don't even know where I'm thinking progression into the song, and just everything about the song was magical to me and still is. I love the chorus in this. Just a top notch song. Down on Your Knees. Now, I didn't hate this song, but it was probably my least favorite, second to least favorite of the four when I was young. I really have come to love this song the older I've gotten. But straightforward, in your face, big drum, anthem type thing. Great song. All of these four songs have phenomenal vocals by Paul Stanley. Moving on to Cold Gin. Down on Your Knees, by the way, was written by Paul, Mike Japp, and Bryan Adams. Cold Gin, of course, written by Ace Frehley. We all love Cold Gin, one of the most epic guitar riffs in the middle. I just love that. Dan it. That's cool. Then you go on to Love Gun, which of course needs no explanation, written by Stanley, one of the biggest Kiss songs of all time as far as, maybe not radio hit wise, but just songs that meant the most to the band, one of the most recognizable songs by the band. Then, of course, listening right into the next one is Shout It Out Loud. Now, they call this the 7-inch mix. I haven't went back and listened to these extra tracks. I probably should have before this. But I don't know what the 7-inch mix means. I'm sure I've heard it. Of course, this is one of their biggest anthems of all time, next to maybe Just Rock and Roll All Night, written by Stanley Simmons and Ezrin. Going into Sure Know Something, written by Stanley and Vinnie Poncia. Obviously, a down-tempo track from Dynasty. Great song, of course. Sure Know Something is very popular with Kiss fans. Great harmonies in here, just a really good tune. And he jumped to side two, which starts out with Nowhere to Run, written by Paul, which I said is 1A, 1B with I'm a Legend Tonight. They kind of, depending on my mood, flip-flop. Awesome song. It's got a lot of feeling and emotion in that, and maybe that's why it wasn't up there with I'm a Legend Tonight early in life, but now it's definitely one of my favorites of all Kiss songs, let alone this album. Then you run into Partners in Crime, Stanley and Mitchell. This one was kind of down there with Down on My Knees, where I liked it, but those two, Down on My Knees, or Down on Your Knees and Partners in Crime, were not listened to as heavily for me as I'm a Legend Tonight or Nowhere to Run. Now I appreciate all four of them for what they are. Partners in Crime is very different. Very groovy type tune. And then, of course, you go into Detroit Rock City without the intro, written by Stanley and Ezrin. And I'm torn on the intro because as a kid, when I first heard Destroyer, that intro just enthralled me. Right, I was just, you can almost visualize a guy getting in his vehicle, turning on the radio and hearing the engine roll, and you're so intrigued at listening to the radio broadcast, and you're buying hook, line, and sinker into this whole story, just waiting on bated breath. Then the song kicks in. Now I would not listen to that intro unless I was just going back for nostalgia, just because I'm not one who likes a long intro. I just want to get right to the song. I mean, obviously the Detroit original intro was awesome and necessary back then to tell the story of the song. But when you're just casually listening, it was appreciated when they come out with versions without that intro on it. And then God of Thunder, written by Stanley. Anybody out there? I'm sure you all have heard that original demo with Paul Stanley singing it. How different was that song? Strange. This says also without intro. Now, does that mean they just took the kid off the front, 3 seconds? I don't know. Like I said, I've got to go back and listen to some of these tracks, but as a Kiss fan, I've heard these songs a million times. So when compilations come out, I really don't care other than collection. Of course, God of Thunder, epic song, one of Gene's battle cries. Then we go into I Was Made for Loving You from Stanley Poncia and my boy, Desmond Child. Love on the Rooftops, fabulous voice, fabulous song, fabulous duet with Paul on Shocker. And they say edited version. Again, I wasn't aware that I Was Made for Loving You was a long song, so I don't know what they edited. I'd have to go back and check. But again, one of their biggest anthems and most well-known songs, one of their most successful as far as radio play songs and charting songs. And then you go to Rock and Roll All Night Live, which has been done to death. I wish they would have chose some other show, some other recording, but I mean, I understand, I appreciate the album alive, I really do. But you never hear, and for good reason. I mean, the studio version's kind of a snoozer, right? Or Rock and Roll Night. But that same live version played over and over and over everywhere you go. Every time anybody's giving Kiss any love, they're playing that live from a live Rock and Roll Night. And I can't do it anymore. I need to hear a different version if I'm going to listen to the song at all. I'm kind of tired of the song overall. The Japanese feature had 2 additional tracks. I'd love to get my hands on this. Not found in the standard edition. It had Escape from the Island, which is not, interestingly enough, on the Japanese release of Music from the Elder. I did not know that. And Shandy, similarly, Talk to Me and Shandy were added to the track listing of the Australian release. The Shout It Out Loud found on this release, I can't talk today, features the single mix that has the vocals in the center channel, whereas the original Destroyer version features Paul Stanley on the right channel and Gene Simmons on the left. Also fades out about 10 seconds earlier than the album version. See, I didn't know that either. There's something to being a Cicchini, right, to where you just are a dork for this stuff. Some of the stuff's interesting. A lot of it I could give a shit about, but I'd have never in a million years picked up the difference of channels that the voices were coming through, because mostly I don't listen to headphones. When I listen to music, I like my music large and loud and proud and shaking my walls. Says the version of Detroit Rock City and God of Thunder found on this release are missing their respective intros, found on Destroyer, which I already mentioned. And, of course, Rock and Roll Night, same as on Alive. Fabulous album. I would have liked to see this album be finished as all originals, regardless of what Ace was doing or Gene was doing, in their personal lives, neglecting from this project. It clearly shows Paul was on top of his game, both vocally and songwriting-wise. And when you add people who are great songwriters like Bryan Adams to the mix, They could have even brought in, he's done work with Michael Bolton and Desmond Child. Paul's at his absolute best when he's working with these pop writers, right? Because his mesh of his history with Motown and classic rock with these pop guys, it always just turns out to be magic. I would love to have seen Paul do that. Even, of course, it's no surprise. I'm a huge Paul fan, and to me, not only is the 78 solo album the best of the 4 solo albums, but it is probably my favorite rock and roll album by anybody ever. Obviously, when you have Paul's vocals, which are my favorite out of any singer in rock history, but the music and the songwriting and the sound, the production, everything about that album was just on another level for me. So hearing these 4 songs from Paul was always a treat. And clearly, he never lost it as far as his vision and his songwriting. And thank God for him, because Kiss would have never survived the 80s without him. So there you have it, man. That's my take on Kiss Killers. One of my favorite albums, if you can call it. I guess I can't rate it there because it's only 4 songs, right? I wouldn't rank double platinum. I don't rank the live albums. It's compilations from many different eras. But one of my favorite go-tos is those 4 songs. Let's put it that way. Those 4 songs have always been really special, mostly because they're great songs, but also because it was a hidden gem that I found that I didn't even know. Because you'd look at the articles, back then there was no wiki discographies and all that crap. So you'd go through magazines, and once in a while they'd list the band's, albums or whatever. That was never in there. The originals was never. I didn't know about the originals until, maybe the early 80s. So, I mean, those were never, they were official Kiss releases, but they were never listed in, the lists of albums that have come out. For some reason, they kept those 2 out. They'd throw double platinum in there, but not Killers, and certainly not the originals. But it is what it is. But that's why it's been so cool being a Kiss fan, is you always find that hidden gem, right? That needle in the haystack. That's why I miss record stores so much. I mean, say what you want about technology and the ease of just downloading your songs, man. There's something about the thrill of the hunt. Get your ass off the couch, get out and fucking hit your record stores. You never know what you find. You go looking for Kiss and you find something else that looks cool, and boom, there you have it. Another fucking band you didn't even know existed, right? You're not going to do that on Spotify. I mean, sure, once in a while they'll throw a song, hey, you might like this, and you like it, but it's fucking just random, right? It's just a fucking shot in the dark. You're relying on AI and bullshit fucking algorithms to fucking... Half the time, these programs, these streaming services bring me shit I could give 2 shits about. Just no different than like Netflix, right? Because you watched Friends, here's fucking The Office. Fuck The Office. I hate The Office. It's nothing like fucking Friends. No offense to Office fans. So it's a flawed system. Your eyes are not flawed, man. Going to the record store, smell of vinyl. Man, it's something I miss. I know you can never go back, but I always, when I go to other cities, other states that are bigger than what I have, I seek out thrift stores and record shops, and it's just a fun experience, man. It really is. Having the visual, having the physical copy instead of just a file, it's just no comparison to me. And I always get a little nostalgic when I start talking about these older Kiss albums, because it takes me right back to that golden day. But there you go, Kiss Killers, man. I know you've all heard it. I know you know the tracks. But just a trip down memory lane, bringing you one of my favorites because of the 4 songs. And let me know what your thoughts are on Killers. When did you discover Killers? What did you think of the tracks? What do you think of the tracks now? And until next time, thanks for watching.